So, confronting one's demons, Parshas BALAK. There's a passage in Parshas BALAK where Bilam, we know the story of Bilam. He was hired to curse the Jewish people. Hashem puts words in his mouth and he's forced to bless them instead. The event leading up to the talking donkey, which is in itself very impactful, and it teaches us that Hashem puts words in a person's mouth, not the person himself, is that Bilam and his donkey are riding down a path, and the donkey sees an angel with a drawn sword, and Bilam can't see the angel. And the donkey is very frightened. Of course, this is all part of a lesson to Bilam as well. You can't even see what your donkey sees. You can't even see what a donkey sees. And so the donkey is very frightened, and it starts moving aside to veer off the path and to go into the vineyard. And Bilam starts striking the donkey. And so the donkey gets back onto the path, but then, Vaya'amod malach Hashem b'mish'ol ha'keramim gadir mizeh v'gadir mizeh. But as they're walking through the path in the vineyard, all of a sudden, there is a wall on either side of this vineyard so that people can't veer off the path. And it's impossible to move right or left. And what happens is that the Bilam hits the donkey. It's too scared to move forward, so it bashes into the wall and maims Bilam's leg. Is essentially what happens, and this only makes Bilam even more upset. And he hits the donkey more until finally the donkey starts talking to him. And then all of a sudden, Hashem opens the eyes of Bilam and he sees the angel in the path with the sword drawn. But there's a message here that some of the Meforshim pull out about what was being conveyed to Bilam precisely by this idea of being locked in and confined in this one pathway where there's no way to move right or left. And part of what some of the Meforshim explain is that what was trying to be communicated to Bilam is that you pathetic human being who thinks that he is in control of his destiny, you have become so entrenched in a certain way of living that you yourself have no outlet. There's no way for you to escape this path that you've chosen for yourself. Sometimes we feel that way in life. We feel so locked in to a certain behavior, a certain lifestyle, because we've become so invested in it and so addicted to it that we can't move right or left. A person becomes a chain smoker, or a person becomes addicted to certain foods. A person becomes addicted to certain behaviors, and they feel trapped. That's typically what an addict expresses, is that I felt that I wasn't in control of my life anymore. I didn't have the freedom to be able to move one way or the other. I felt I was forced to continue down this self-destructive path. And that's precisely what Hashem is trying to demonstrate to Bilam, is that through bad choices that you started off with, you now are in a position where even if you wanted to change, you wouldn't be able to, because you've committed so much to this way of life, you don't know any other way, and you can't change even if you wanted to. This is a concept that our sages point out, that a person can become so addicted to a certain way of bad behavior that the pathways of tshuva are blocked to that person because they don't even know where to start. They can't bring themselves, even if they come to some intellectual recognition that what I'm doing is wrong, I don't know where to begin. I don't know. I feel I'm trapped. I can't escape where I'm headed. And it's a terrible feeling to have. But I'm sure that in many ways, some of us may have felt this kind of emotion many times in life. The Medrash in Eliyahu Rabbah says, in source number 4, it says, Ve'ezehu holech, there's a pasuk in Yirmiyah that says, Al tivku lameis va'al tinadu lo. It says, don't mourn or be upset when a person dies. You know why? Because they're in a better place. But Yirmiyah says, you know who you should be upset about? He says, B'chu b'cho laholech ki lo yashuv od v'ra'a es eretz moladato. Cry for the person who's being sent into exile and is being completely estranged and won't ever be able to come back to their place of birth. That's who you should cry for. Don't cry for a person once they're dead. They're not in pain anymore. Cry for people who are so displaced from where they belong that they'll never be able to come back home. That's what Yirmiyah says you should cry. Those are the people you should cry for. So the Medrash says this is not to be taken literally just for the Jews who were sent out into the exile and could never come back to Eretz Yisrael. He says, Eliyahu Rabbah says, Ve'ezehu holech zeh sha'avar avera v'shana v'shilei shlosha pa'amim v'lo chazar bo ve'asat tshuva. This refers to a person who habitually sins 2, 3, 4 times, 3 times he says, and was not able to do tshuva in the interim. Al oso bachu ki ne'ekar min ha'olam. That's the kind of person you should cry for, because that person's lost. He's completely removed from the world of reality. Ki lo yashuv od v'ra'as eretz moladato. As the prophet says, he'll never come home. He can't come home. The pathways of tshuva are blocked for him. Maimonides, the Rambam codifies this in Hilchos Tshuva. He says that there are certain people who have so abused their privilege of free will that after a point, Hashem basically says, no more free will. I've taken away your opportunity to rehabilitate yourself. And he says that's what happened with Paro. For the first 5 plagues, Paro had free will. He could have chosen to let the Jewish people go. When it says that Hashem hardened his heart, it is essentially that Hashem blocked from him the opportunity to do tshuva. Now, you could learn it as a cause and effect, as a punishment for exercising poor choices. Your punishment is, I will no longer allow you to choose freely from now on. But you could also learn it as a natural cause and effect. Once a person has embarked on a certain path and they habitually behave in a certain way, then it's not that Hashem actively hardens their heart, but their heart hardens. They're not able to. They don't see really the crime anymore. And even if there's some little voice in the back of their heads that says, maybe this is wrong, they can't even hear it anymore. It's so suppressed, it's so far away that that voice can't be listened to anymore. The Shem Yishmael has a beautiful piece on this, but this is the point that Sefer Knesses Yecheskel, from one of the Radomsker Rebbes, points out that this is what Hashem was trying to point to Bilam. You pathetic person. You are so lost. You are stuck in between the 2 walls of your choices, and you're never going to be able to break free because of all of the poor choices you've made in the past. Now, the truth is that we're told that there are certain times in our lives when Hashem does a chesed with us, the Jewish people, and does allow us to break free. And, you know, they say that when an addict needs to rehabilitate himself or herself, they have to first hit rock bottom. That rock bottom is the moment of truth for an addict who says, you know what, my life is so bad and I've lost everything that I have nowhere else to go. I can't continue along the path. Fortunately, Klal Yisrael is given a gift by Hashem that at certain junctures of our life cycle, we are allowed to find glimmers of free will despite our addictions to various negative behaviors even before we hit rock bottom. And that's the gift that Hashem gives us. So the Shem Yishmael says that it happens on Shabbos, on Shabbatot, when we free ourselves from the shackles of physicality. We're able to more easily see truth, even when we're addicted to a certain behavior. Which, by the way, if I can continue along that road of cynicism that we were taking before, is part of the reason why I think that there's so much talking in shul on Shabbos, is because the people who talk maybe are just, they don't want to confront that spiritual person inside of themselves. And they just want to escape. They want to escape that spiritual setting. They want to escape that Shabbos setting. But they know they have that sense of duty to come to shul, but they still want to escape that. They don't want it. It's a very difficult thing to have to confront yourself. And the synagogue is the place to do that. So maybe that's part of the reason. And I say that without any malice. I'm just saying that this might be the sociological reason behind it as to why people try to escape when they're in the synagogue. They know they have a sense of duty to stay, but they still want to escape that spiritual experience, so they'll engage in conversation to be able to break free of what the synagogue represents to them. The Shem Shmuel says, he says, L'chora yesh lahavin, eich yachol hachotei letaken chet. It's the source number 6. He says, we got to try and understand, how can a sinner correct and rectify his sin through just thought and through verbal confession? After all, you've done a physical act. How can you possibly rehabilitate it just by words and emotion alone? So the Shem Shmuel's thesis is as follows. If you take a look at the bottom paragraph, because we're a little bit over time, he says, V'nira dihine amru zal avera goreret avera. He says, our sages tell us that one sin leads to another. V'im kein la'olam b'chata'im shachar kach hashuvim ka'anusim o shogegim. He says, when a person becomes addicted to sin, or to what we would call bad behavior, really, the event that the act that I did today, whether it was lashon hara or something that was damaging to myself, damaging to others, I'm doing it today not because I've actively chosen to do it. It's because I'm addicted to that behavior. So really, I should be deemed like someone who does it by accident, or unintentionally at least. Really, my crime was committed 10 years ago when I allowed myself, when I was a free mind, and I had the free will, and I was lucid enough to know that it was wrong, and I actively chose to do it 10 years ago. That's when I should be held liable. But what I'm doing today, my liability should not be as great, because really, I'm an addict. I'm addicted to doing certain things that are bad. He says, therefore, when I embark on doing tshuva, I really should think about that moment 10 years ago when I first got started. That's really what the tshuva is required for most. I've talked about this once before. He says, and he says, that's why tshuva can be accomplished through thought and through words. It's because whatever actions I do, really the main crime was the precipitation of the thought and the knowledge that what I'm doing is wrong and I'm going to do it anyway. By the time I get around to doing it, especially when I'm a repeat offender, it's not the sin itself that is so bad, it's the intent that I had all that long time ago to commit that crime, which is what I have to do tshuva for. And unfortunately, this was the sentence that was passed upon Bilam, but it's a lesson for all of us. We have to look at certain situations in our lives where we feel, yes, I'm a very observant and I try to do all the mitzvahs that I possibly can, but what are those things in my life where I've sort of been boxed in? And no matter, what am I so oblivious to in my own life because I've been along this path for so long that I don't even feel the need to veer right or left because of the walls that have been built through my addictive behavior. And whether that's lashon hara, whether that's binge eating, which is a big problem for people who have eating disorders, or whether it's just any other kind of relationships that we have with our children, our parents, our siblings, friends, whatever those things that we've become so set in our ways, we have to just imagine ourselves with those walls. And if we can figure out how to break down those walls and realize that the walls are there, then perhaps the times of the year during Shabbos, and especially as we get closer and closer to the high holidays, you can figure out how to break those walls down. Okay, have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.